Hello, hello, welcome. And for those of you watching the replay, thank you so much for watching this replay. This is going to be a bit of a long one, but on the replay especially, you're going to be able to see timestamps in the description where we jump to certain portions. If you're joining us live and you're probably just catching up with the stream now, please do say hello in the comments and give this video a thumbs up as we go through today. I'm going to ask you for some interaction as we go through because we're going to be talking today all about the ClickUp hierarchy, structuring the hierarchy. That means spaces, folders, lists, and tasks, and subtasks, and subtasks, with the hopes of helping you get over this overwhelming part of ClickUp and just get into the actual content, the actual substance, because that's ultimately what really matters. So I'm just confirming we've got sound. Yes, we are good. Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. So if you guys are joining me live, feel free to say hello in the comments below. I'm just going to see who we have here today. Morgan, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Laura, hello, hello. So glad to have you here. I see there's a few more lurkers in the background there, so please do say hi. Barb's here. Yes, so great to have you here. I'm hoping today is going to be a good. This is going to be a big live stream today. And actually, let me just share the screen so that you can get a little bit of a sense of where we're heading today. For those of you who don't yet benefit from the timestamps of the replay. Whoops. There we go. All right. So today's objectives are to go through 4 major topics. And, I like to organize my presentation. So here are our 4 pieces. Number 1 is what is the ClickUp hierarchy? The basics, just getting the lay of the land. If you are a complete ClickUp beginner, this will give you a bit of a crash course. What variables matter for the decision of the ClickUp hierarchy? Because business model, which is the one we're going to talk about today, is not the only variable. ClickUp is more of an art than a science in some ways, and we're going to talk about that later on. Then we're going to go to the 3 methods to choose what is the right hierarchy for you. So I've got trial and error. You guys probably can guess what that's about. Layla's services shortcut and DIY with a process org chart. For those of you who are ClickingUp members and are here today, feel free to just say like, hey, I'm here, or something like that in the chat, because I know some of you are joining us today. ClickingUp members, we teach you to use a process org chart. Layla's services shortcut, though, for many of you here who are trying to figure out, like, just quickly, give me something to chew on for how I should organize my services. I'm going to give you a rule of thumb later on in this video for how to decide where to go in the hierarchy in about 10 seconds. All right, although it'll take me much more than that to explain it, probably. Finally, we're going to go into the stuff that many of you are looking forward to, which is the actual hierarchy piece. What does this hierarchy look like for different types of service models? Now, just to give you a sense of where we're going today, guys, we got a little bit of ground to cover, okay? We've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different business models that we're going to go through in terms of offer structures and how those change the way your ClickUp is structured. So we'll go into those soon. But make sure you stay till the end so that you make sure you get to the business model that's relevant to you. Those are in the description below if you want to have a sense of our trajectory for today. So we're going to start off with what is the ClickUp hierarchy. But before I do, let me lay out the ground rules for today. Oh, and hi, Danny. Danny, if you guys don't know, he's our Notion nerd as well as just general productivity nerd. You can find him on YouTube. His stuff's awesome. We're going to have some collaborations coming up soon, I hope. So just some information here about the lay of the land for this live stream. I'd love to hear in the chat, for those of you who haven't already said hi or we haven't already met, what type of business you run. What business model do you care about? Because I have a bunch of businesses in the description of this video that I'm going to go through the business model, kind of the typical ClickUp structure for that business model. But I want to hear what yours is to see if we can either tweak those or just make sure that we're covering all of the different business models that you might possibly have. So what do you do? The most American question, leave that in the chat, please. So I'll leave that up there on the screen. I'm also going to go over some baseline rules here as we go, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. For those of you joining me live, while you're typing in what business that you run, I want you to keep in mind that that chat is your tool to steer the direction of these live streams. One of the main things you can do during this live stream is ask questions. And I love questions, but also you can use the word demo as we go through today in order to actually tell me to stop everything I'm doing and show you an example in ClickUp. So I actually have over here in the other tab of my browser, a ClickUp demo space ready for you. And so I get a lot of feedback after some of these where people are like, I really wish we saw more in ClickUp. Well, I'm sorry, unless you join live and use this demo icon, I will not go into ClickUp today. But if you need it, ask for it. Okay, so there's that. One other housekeeping thing is if you're looking for the tech stack we're using, it's on this website. I get that question a lot. Check that out there. And yeah, You can find all the rest of our live streams on YouTube. So let's see, who do we have in the audience today? Bruce, looking forward to this. I'm glad to have you here. I'm looking forward to it too. I think this is going to be a good one. Morgan, I grow and sell houseplants online directly to the customer. Ooh, okay. So we will have one pretty close to you. Compass Digital Strategies course and content creation is my purpose for learning today. I'm pretty set on the consulting side. Barb, I'm really excited for what we have coming out with ClickingUp on the content management piece. We've got a bunch of content too, some other stuff with another Notion nerd, Jonathan Stewart, coming up to talk more about the course management side. Connie provides analytics, modeling, simulation, and software development to government and commercial entities. We do so through programs and projects. Whew, okay, so you've got some complex projects. We are going to have something that will speak to that kind of issue. We've got Taylor doing branding and digital marketing. Mark, hello. Speaking, coaching. Okay, we've got stuff about events and memberships coming up. I had a sense that we had a lot of membership folks in here. Productized service, profit growth service for small businesses. Awesome. Glad to have you here, Bruce. Facebook user, I'm sorry, it's not showing your name. You have to click a little box on the Facebook side of things, but faith blogger, own another business, sell digital product bundles. Okay, a lot of digital products. Arnold, hey, Arnold, good to see you again. Software solution to heavy highway construction industry via SaaS. Okay, a little bit of everything going on there. And Laura, design studio specializing in product design. So we have a good range of people here. And if you're coming in late, the question to the group was just kind of, what do you do? What do you do? What angle is going to be most meaningful to you so I can make sure that we are covering it? We're going to then, I think we have enough. We've got a few things. I think we have a few Leahs coming in here as well. A few other options coming in of different business models. These are awesome to hear. What I'm going to show you first is the ClickUp hierarchy, and let's just start there. So that way, if any of you are completely new to ClickUp, we'll be answering your questions first. And actually, not to shame you at all, but if you are ClickUp newbie, it will help us pace today. If you just type newbie into the chat, that'll let me know that, this is, how many newbies do we have? How many experienced ClickUp users do we have? Type newbie in the chat if you are a ClickUp newbie or beginner or just shopping around. Okay, so ClickUp hierarchy. ClickUp hierarchy starts with a workspace. There we go. This is your overall account. In Asana, it might be your organization. It's usually your business name. Below that, we have spaces. Spaces have pretty little icons, and they're the top level of the hierarchy within your account. A lot of people think that these should be departments. Personally, I have a different opinion, so you'll hear about that in a little bit. Next, below a space, we have folders or folderless lists. Blah, blah, blah. That's a mouthful. Lists that just kind of float on their own, or folders with lists inside them. Folders are just containers, just like spaces. There's slightly different functionality, but that's that. Now, to translate this into an actual software, here's what it looks like. And by the way, here's a sneak peek at what the ClickUp hierarchy looks like right now. Here is my spaces inside my ClickUp account. And actually, let's back up for a second. Workspace, right? The very top layer, that's down here. So that's the icon that's in front of your face, your company logo typically, that's your workspace. Within that area is space. If you're using modern or clean layout in ClickUp, this is going to look a little bit different. I have a video, which maybe we can timestamp in the replay around here. I have a video talking about the different sidebar layouts. So if yours does not look like this, just look for the things with the icons. Those are your spaces. Inside the spaces, once you expand them with the little carrots like this guy here, you have folders. That's what these guys are. Research library for me is one of my folders that I use a whole lot. And inside that are a bunch of lists with emojis in the list name. These lists do not have to be in a folder. They could also just be floating out on their own. But this is the ClickUp hierarchy. Looks like, just to give a kind of a sense here, we have someone who fosters cats. That's very cool. Mark asked, where was my tech stack info listed? Let me send that to you. There we go. There's our tech stack for today. If anyone else has this question, because I know this is going to come out throughout the whole presentation, who do we have in terms of newbies? So call me. I'm going to butcher names today. Connie's a newbie. Arnold's a newbie. Janine's a newbie. Sean's a beginner. That's a nicer way to say newbie. Maybe I should have said that instead. Brooke, you can definitely be in the middle. I would say most people are probably in the middle. And it sounds like Bruce is also in the middle. Knowing just enough to be confused. I think many of us can relate to that, right? And for clarity, I still don't consider myself a ClickUp expert yet. I don't know that status exists unless you're inside ClickUp to know what's coming next. So I think we are all beginners in our own right. We've all got things to learn. So that's the basic ClickUp hierarchy though, and that's what we're going to be using throughout today to actually go through this presentation. We need to understand this baseline, of workspace, space, list, folder, list, and so on in order for this to work. Are we all good on that? When I go through today, when we give out our business model structures and generic templates, I'm mostly going to be focused on space, folder, list, task. Okay? So these are the main things that I'm going to be talking about. And when I'm talking about a hierarchy, I'm talking about space equals, in this case here, products and services. Actually, let's just go ahead. I'm going to use this as an example to make sure we're all clear. Space here is reference. This is my reference section of ClickUp. This folder is the library. So this is the container that groups all of the lists. The lists, in this case, I have set up as categories because I didn't want them to be custom fields because I wanted different permissions. And inside these lists are tasks. Tasks live on lists. That's the only place tasks live in ClickUp. Well, that's kind of a mouthful. Tasks live on lists, just like a to-do list. Just like if you have a piece of paper, the list is the piece of paper. In ClickUp, the list is where the tasks live. Danny, great point. Unless you really know the code behind the app, you never really know the app. I would fully agree with that. That's why I don't think there's any shame in wearing the beginner or newbie hat. Looks like Sam's also in the newbie hat. Oh, Sam, I'm glad you were able to make it. Okay, so just as a little teaser here, if you need more information about this, I do have a quick, sorry, this is very small, quick beginner tour on YouTube that you can watch if you need to break down this at a slower pace. This is going to be kind of rapid fire today. I have a lot of content I want us to cover. So now that we understand the ClickUp hierarchy, the natural decision is, well, where do we fall on it? Do I devise my clients as a space, a folder, a list, a workspace? What's the right choice? And to make that decision, I want us to break apart the different things that go into that decision. Because like I said at the onset, for those of you who maybe joined a little bit late, the decision is not only guided by business model, even though that's the variable we're talking about today. So when I'm giving you examples later on in this lesson, I do not want you to take them and say, all right, great, I know exactly how to organize my e-commerce business. Because e-commerce business with a one person who is making and selling plants online, right? That was the person we had here. That kind of situation is going to be different than e-commerce who has 500 employees and is shipping internationally. It's just different. And so business model is just a piece of it. And let's go into the other pieces just so we have all those disclaimers out of the way. Process is the biggest piece of the puzzle. And that's where business model comes in. This is what exactly is happening. Okay, what are you trying to manage? What's involved with it? That is the biggest piece. These are attempted to be proportional, give or take, of the decision of hierarchy. And let me make this just go on. Big, 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 get rid of that. And just a reminder, if you want to use the word demo, if you want to see any of this in ClickUp directly. So process is the biggest piece of the variables here, followed by feature requirements. So we're not going to talk about this today, but if your e-commerce system requires certain permissions to be different from one task to the next, and by task, it's lowercase t, it's like the thing you need to do. If you require different permissions, well, all of a sudden, we can't use subtasks because subtasks inherit the permissions of the task. And so that feature need tells us we need two tasks and not to use a task with subtasks. So these features can really guide a lot of the decisions. And that's where Expertise can really help with that piece of it. And I say expert with an asterisk. Team size is another element, which I've already touched on here. When it comes to the size and complexity of the process, the size of the team, the number of humans you need to coordinate will determine how clear and how explicit you really need to be. Finally, aesthetic quirks. And this is something that I never really thought about till I was working with clients. And we've had some great conversations about this recently in ClickingUp, but there's might be you just prefer to see things a certain way, right? Spaces are one of those things where there's not a lot of reasons to have more spaces unless you need to enable separate Click apps. And for those of you who are a beginner, I'm sorry, this is going to get a little technical here. You do not need to understand the stuff I'm saying right now to get value out of today. I just want to, for those of you on the advanced side, one of the only reasons to have extra spaces is to have different Click apps enabled or to provide permission control at that level. But a lot of people create separate spaces just because they like to have emojis. And that's one of those things you don't really think about, but it's the kind of fourth pillar that helps you decide what is the right way to choose the right variable for you. Oh, and to recap, here are the different productized, bespoke, and products that we are going to be modeling out today in ClickUp. So pause for questions here and water. Are the emojis in your list a setting like colors, or are they in your list names? And did you deactivate colors? Okay, so let's actually go into ClickUp here. And let's go into light mode so you can see that a little bit better. Hopefully that's better here. So in my example, I actually had my list names having emojis in them. So what this was simply using, here's an example of one. I have a piece coming out soon with a ballot box emoji. And so when I created my list names, I just put them in the text themselves. I did not disable the colors of the lists. I just, at this point, until the update that we sense is coming soon, until that happens, I don't find much purpose in these list colors. They just kind of, for me, it actually just makes it feel messier. So I prefer the emojis that are constant than these list colors that kind of show up everywhere. So that's how the emoji puzzle works, just copying off of the internet. So hopefully that one makes sense for you there. Okay, popping back in to the flow of things. These are our examples for today. Okay, Whew. All right. So now we have to choose. What is the right hierarchy for us? Which is the right way for us to organize our processes? And the three methods that we talked about at the very beginning of today was either 1, trial and error, 2, Layla's shortcut, which I'm going to give you guys here, and you can screenshot, you can save. And then 3, a process org chart. And that is the best way, the most accurate way. And actually, let's put it that way. Trial and error can be highly accurate, but it's very slow. Layla's shortcut is very fast, but fairly inaccurate. It's more of a rule of thumb. And the process org chart is highly accurate, but it takes a longer amount of time. So as I go through each one of these today, understand that none of them are better than the others. They're just different. So yes, trial and error, let's go through that first, because that's probably where most of you who are beginners, this is where you probably want to start if you're DIYing. I know it sounds frustrating to hear trial and error, but trial and error can either be a burst, which means you go into ClickUp, it's your first day in ClickUp, you're so excited, and you just create all of the structure from scratch because you watched a YouTube video or you had an idea, or you're bringing over habits from Asana, Trello, Monday, etc. The problem with the burst method here, sub-genre, if you will, of trial and error, is that you create a lot. And in ClickUp, removing hierarchy is a lot harder than adding it later. And so if you're going to use trial and error, burst is the method of doing everything all at once. I would avoid if you can. If you're going to do trial and error the right way, instead, don't spell things wrong, and do an organic approach, meaning start with one list that's without a folder in one space. Maximize that. Use all the views. Use all the custom fields you can imagine, and then expand to a second list, and then expand to a folder, and then, and organically let your structure build from your actual needs as you use it. This is, I think, the best way to DIY ClickUp. It's also the one that requires the most restraint, which is why most people don't do it. But I do have a video showing you kind of some examples of this if you want to just get a little inspiration. So this video is linked here, and we'll put it in the show notes as well. It's ClickUp folder versus list versus task, aptly named. So that's trial and error. Has anyone here, I'm assuming many of you, have anyone here done the trial and error approach? And if so, was it burst? Was it organic? Was it a little bit of both? If you did trial and error, let me know in the chat, because I think people who are beginners, who are looking at ClickUp and hearing this, they might think that it's impossible to get started. And those of you who have survived trial and error, which can be sometimes the hardest way to do things, but also one of the easiest in many ways, you might be encouraging to our new members by giving them a little bit of information there. So if you use trial and error, share, please. All right, here comes the shortcut. So this one I might lose you on. So if you have questions as we go, reminder to please use the demo and ask your questions. I'm just going to leave this up on the screen as a reminder here. Okay, we got some, hold on, we got some trial and errors, trial and error plus YouTube, hopefully my YouTube, but there's many other YouTubers that are great too. Arnold, burst with only tasks. Oh, not bad with only tasks. Janine said trial and error, copied from our physical foster steps. That's a good way to go about it. 100%, I created spaces and then found it helpful, but a lot to track. Loretta, definitely have done trial and error, but now it's just confusing. I know, if you overbuild, it gets really messy really fast. Taylor, started as a burst and then deleted and switched to a simple to-do list. There we go. And I think we have to learn that the hard way sometimes, but if we can avoid it, for those of you who haven't started yet, and you're gonna trial and error, DIY organically. It will make your life easier. Or, don't DIY and work with us. Okay, so here is Layla's services shortcut. for your offer, not just services. And I'm not sure if it's gonna let me zoom in like a nice, is there like an in-between zoom? Maybe? Yeah, there we go. Okay, you can kind of see that. So here's the shortcut. Basically, we take the conventions that everyone tells you for ClickUp, where a space equals an organizational department, a folder equals a project, a list equals a phase of that project, and a task equals a task. And we kind of put it on a slider. That's my shortcut, at least. This is what I would use when I'm trying to consult with clients pretty quickly and give them a frame of reference. So if you guys are ClickUp service providers, free tip for you. And I basically put it into 4 buckets from left to right of complexity of project versus full-on product. We're going to use this actually as kind of a reference tool as we go through the rest of it. I'm just seeing if there are any comments. Okay, we're good. So on the left side is the whale. If you have a whale service, meaning you have one client that makes up 70% of your revenue, or you are an employee and you have a job, those are all whale situations where you have one whale, which I would make your space. And within that, your folder would be your project. Your list would be the deliverables for that project. So 1 list per major deliverable. And your task would be your process. So if your list said website, your task would say draft, edit, publish, test, revise, that kind of thing. Does this make sense? Because I'm going to rely on you understanding that to move on to the next level. I think so. You can give me a yes if it does. That's the whale method. And this is appropriate, again, if you were employed somewhere, if you have one client that's the majority of your income. And this is the only time I would recommend having your client be a space. Now, there are aesthetic reasons why you might choose to break this rule. Again, this is a rule of thumb. I've definitely consulted in different situations where maybe it has made sense, but most of the time it does not. So there you go. Next is custom. If you have a service, right? If you have consulting, if you're doing construction, if you're doing a custom project, architects, I mean, in this category as well, custom projects of any kind, move it down 1 layer in the hierarchy. So from whale to custom service or custom anything, make the client the folder. Below that, project, deliverable, process, same exact thing. And project and deliverable, if you don't need both of those layers, just get rid of the one and move everything up. So for example, maybe you don't have deliverables, it's just a process because it's tech support or something. You don't have a set deliverable, just get rid of that step and move process up. So it would be client, project, process, and you'd skip the deliverable chunk. Okay. All right, productized. If you have a productized service, set scope, set delivery, set price often, then move it 1 layer down the hierarchy. Again, same thing. We're changing a few words here, but more or less the process is the same. Now we have offer equals list. This is the biggest reframe. The first 2 were based around a human being. And so our client name, John Doe, would be our folder. In productized, our offer would be our list. Okay? Offer would be the list. So for us, we have ClickingUp as a list. If that makes sense. That's the offer we're selling. Now, there are exceptions to this, but that would be like if you had a strategy session, that would be a list. If you had a coaching or a wellness visit or something that's productized, fixed scope, in and out, you kind of have a set process for it, list. Below that, you'd have a task per purchase. So I did per purchase here, not per contract because of the terminology changes, but really this could be the client name. This could be the order number. Depends how productized you are here as to what this one equates to, purchase. And if you can skip the subtask level, I would skip it for productized. The only time to use a subtask, well, hell, you can watch my checklist versus subtask video to figure out why that makes sense. But I try to skip subtasks if you can, and then your process goes in the checklist. Okay? All right. I'm just checking to see. We've got the last one here, and then I'll go take some questions here. So if you guys have questions, put them in the chat now. I'm going to do a question break after this. After productized, we go to straight up product. And actually, let me define productized again, because I think people get confused on this. Productized could mean a service. It could mean a bundled experience. It's something where there's one price. Okay, one price, fixed scope, no proposals usually, not a lot of customization. If someone says they want to buy this, you know what this is without any further discussion. This could even be a strategy session if I didn't already give that example. A haircut is productized. All right, product. One step further, I think we all need to know what this is. It could be a digital product, physical product, something else. I don't know if there's an in-between, experience product maybe. But a product would go 1 layer down, where customer name would be the task, deliverable would be the subtask, and process would be the checklist. Again, if you don't need these layers because you don't use things by customer name, you have a POS, maybe don't put it in ClickUp. If you don't have deliverables, move it up the layer. Get rid of that deliverables layer. But this is my shorthand for determining hierarchy. If I do not know anything about you and you're really, really set on having me give you a suggestion as to what your hierarchy should look like, this is typically what I'll pull on. And I've seen people do variants of this, mostly around this model, because most people who consult on ClickUp, this is the offer that they have, or this is the offer that they have. So all of their recommendations are based on their experience. I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of different industries, and this has generally held true across the board. So, okay, pause for questions here. What do you guys think of this? Is this making sense? Is this something you could think you could use? Are you applying this shorthand to your own brain right now? Because if you are, I might break some of these rules as we go through some real examples, but I'd love to hear it. Okay, pause for water. Okay, so Arnold says, what if not a client, but a product? Now, I probably skipped past when you actually asked this question. Arnold, explain what you mean by that, please, if you wouldn't mind. I'll come back to your question here in a moment. I know there's a bit of a delay, but hopefully you can get back to me before we move on. Hanny says, Hanny, not sure. Can I build tech support or help desk also into the same? So, yes, you certainly could. I would probably treat help desk or that kind of thing as productized, because you probably have a set resolution process unless it's a large scope. So for example here, custom would probably be a tech migration if it was a completely custom job based on what software they're currently using to where they're heading. But if it's a support ticket, it could be in either of these two situations. It really depends on how complex your process is. One of these is probably going to make more sense intuitively to you. Off the top of my head, hearing list as customer support probably would make a lot of sense. Connie says, many whales, many to many relationships to the whales. Yeah, a lot of whale clients can be difficult to manage in ClickUp, and they're also difficult to manage in life. So can you move a space to folder and vice versa? So not at this point in time. I know you didn't ask for a demo, but I'm going to show you anyway. There is not a nice conversion feature here in ClickUp to convert a list to a folder to a list, etc. You can do it this way. Like I can convert this to a subtask. Not super useful, but there you go. I think there's a Canny request, oh my goodness, Canny ClickUp's feedback board where there are some requests for that feature, but not currently. However, it is very, very easy to rename things. So typically what I would just do is I would just rename and then drag and drop your new organization structure however you need it to. Folders themselves do not house any data. They're just containers. So making a folder on the fly is not a big deal. The only thing you might have physically difficult to set up would be some views, which are these guys, which I have a video on if you need some help with that. All right, so Arnold says, oh, thanks for the clarification. Productized seems closest to me. Yes, productized is probably the fit for the vast majority of people. This is typically where most businesses end up because you have a service component. It's not fully just volume game. Productized is going to be the most common, I would bet. I think the product set is close to what I'm trying to do in the Slack. Yep. Okay. So we've had some conversations in ClickingUp. I got lost moving through statuses and setting up multiple checklists for different stages. Sam, we're going to talk inside the ClickingUp Slack community later today. I have some thoughts for you on this. So hold out. And also we'll be talking about some automations because I think that'll help you in a big way. Arnold, I have software product set price for different target markets. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it depends on how complex. There are SaaS offers that are truly products. And then there are SaaS offers that are more like productized. And anything that has a extended sales cycle, that has an onboarding process that, I would argue that the ClickUp Enterprise plan is a productized offer, basically. It's a productized offer. The unlimited plan or the free plan is a product offer, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to keep butchering your name. Can I sync two accounts, personal and work accounts? So yeah, let's get back to the hierarchy and let's answer this real quick. I think any more questions, feel free to send them in here before we go into the examples, because then it's going to get pretty technical. So if I lost you at any point now, this is the time to ask. So to this question, workspaces cannot be synced. You can toggle between them. So here you can see on my screen, I can flip between different workspaces I'm in because I have so many fake ones. You can toggle, and certain things like your reminders, your notepad, etc., they're going to follow with you throughout each workspace, but generally they do not talk to each other. If you want to have all of your things connected and be able to see all of the projects and tasks in one spot, I would recommend building at the space level down. So that's why if you have a personal organization system in ClickUp, I typically recommend making it its own space or folder. And you can watch my adulting video on the channel to get a little bit more of an example of what that looks like. I would not recommend creating separate workspaces if it's just you, right? Unless you really have to. Sam, thanks for holding on. I promise it'll be worth the wait. Okay, so we're going to keep moving forward here. Just to recap where we got so far before we get into the meaty part of today, which is going to be kind of lengthy. What is ClickUp Hierarchy? Talked about it. What variables matter for the decision of your ClickUp hierarchy? Talked about it. And methods to choose. We actually have one more piece of the methods to choose, guys. I just gave you my shortcut. But there's a third option. Yay. Okay, so the third option today is to DIY with a process org chart. And this, Sam, this is probably what I'm going to point you to as well. I think we've talked a little bit about this, but the process org chart is the idea of building your business structure in terms of functional areas. And this is the main reason that I disagree with the general recommendation, even by ClickUp themselves, for making your spaces your departments. I would rather see your spaces, if you do that kind of structure, be your operational areas. And I know this feels like business jargon to say departments versus operational areas, but it's the difference between saying what your job title is and what you do. That's the kind of difference I'm talking about. So the process org chart is an exercise we teach inside ClickingUp. It helps you define your business in terms of these functional areas and basically gives you a recipe for translating each of those areas into ClickUp. And we have decision trees and logic and like Sam's going to experience later today, personal feedback to help you go through each of these. But this is what I consider to be the fastest in terms of less iterations. You do it once, but it really makes sense. You don't have to change it up a bunch of times. And it's just the most thought out way of doing your processes. I created this process for doing this after I've already gone through so much trial and error. And I was like, oh my gosh, I accidentally uncovered that this process actually got me to the right outcome so much faster than trial and error did. At this point, I also want to highlight the fact that you can hire ClickUp consultants to help you as well. So I don't know if we have any ClickUp consultants here today on the stream. I know usually we have a few of you joining, and some of you I know are in ClickingUp, so you're probably here. If you are a ClickUp consultant, feel free to plug yourself, say, hey, I do that. Plug yourself here. ClickUp has a bunch of consultants, including myself, who help people set up ClickUp. If you do not want to get access to these kinds of things from our ClickingUp community side, consultants can be that external logic for you. They can guide you through that decision-making if you'd rather not guide yourself. So we have this if you want to DIY. Consultants are awesome if you want to just get an answer from somebody else and apply it. Either way, though, and this is an important note that people often forget, you need a process org chart. You need to know your processes in order to even engage a ClickUp consultant. And either you can pay them to pull it out of your brain, which is a very time-consuming process and a very costly process. I know firsthand, I used to do it. Or you can come prepared and bring it to your ClickUp consultant and say, hey, here's exactly what we do. Here's how it works. Here's the departments and the organization structure that we need. Can you help us turn this into something in ClickUp? Speaking for myself as a ClickUp consultant, when I did implementations for people, that is exactly, that reduces so much prep and back and forth on our front. So, okay. Is it better to align your business functions like biz-ops to space first or projects to our life? Okay, so to answer this question, the decision tree would help you with this. Sorry, you do not have access. But what I like to see is spaces be constant. Spaces should generally be, by being operational areas, they're generally constant. And so if you have projects, spurts, improvements, it's typically lower than the space level. The complexity of the project could warrant something different, but I cannot imagine a project complex enough to warrant its own space unless it was like starting a whole other business. So yes, so I would look a layer down. Hey, we have a consultant coming in the near future. Woo! I know we have at least 5, maybe 7 consultants in ClickingUp now, either like official or unofficial. Don't tell, they're on their way. So I love connecting with other consultants because I know there's so much that I learned the hard way. Okay, so we talked about the rules of thumb. We talked about 3 different ways to do it, and now we're going to start talking about some examples. If you have any questions as we get into this, if you want to ask for a demo, just a reminder, put the word demo in the chat. I will pause everything I'm doing. I will go into ClickUp and show you a demo of whatever I'm talking about in this time. Also, as we go through today, I'm going to be mentioning ClickingUp. That's what we do. Details are in the description, or just go to our website because that's like the Sam and like the folks that are here that are members of ClickingUp, that's where they're getting all this good stuff and work and how they can work with me. All right. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted by reading your comments. Okay. So moving forward, let's go to virtual. Oh, hold on. We've got one question that I think was going to. So are you recommending not having spaces for clients? Confirmed. Confirmed. Unless you have a whale, my general rule of thumb is clients should not be spaces. Unless that client is fixed, right? With a whale, 70% of your revenue, it's going to be pretty fixed. But otherwise, clients come and go, which is why I think they should be lower in the hierarchy, and they generally do not need that level of complexity. A good example of a whale is they need their time tracked, and you don't track time anywhere else. So you need a separate space with that Click app of time tracking enabled in order to get that granularity. No other client should be that demanding or require that much customization than a whale client. So I am indeed breaking from what most people think, and I am not recommending the space setup for clients. I know many people disagree with that. Yeah, situations vary, but generally no. All right, so let's go. First up, virtual assistant. As I go through here, if you are a virtual assistant, please do wave your hands. I'm sure there are people that are going to be watching this looking for you. So virtual assistants in the house, please do say hello in the chat. If you are someone that is a virtual assistant or you have hourly custom services of any kind. So I have a sample just for all of these. I have a sample ideal client, if you will, or standard avatar above, but really this is the general category I'm talking about. So whether you're something similar, you have a similar business model, there you go. Below that, we have spaces, folders, and lists. And I think for a virtual assistant, someone doing custom hourly services, I do not recommend having your offer at the space level at all. You could, if you wanted to, for an aesthetic reason, but there's no technical reason to do so. I would instead just build your clients as a folder for all clients. Your list says clients, and your tasks are client name. So your structure, your hierarchy structure would be a task equals a client structure, to put it in those terms. So my folder versus list versus task video that I've mentioned before, you can find it on the YouTube channel at processdriven.co/YouTube. If you go and watch that video, it actually shows you this exact structure that I'm recommending. I highly recommend it for VAs, hourly contractors, and so on, because it's just so simple and it allows you to do a lot more with automations than building up higher in the hierarchy. Your second list, if you were that kind of structure, would be to maybe have a leads list so that way you can have a little bit of segmentation, or maybe an inactive clients if you didn't want to use statuses. All right, contractors. Do we have any home services or contractors in the house today? I know I have one in my house. So contractors are anyone who's doing a bespoke project. This could be physical, digital, something in between. For you, I would recommend, generally speaking, your spaces be clients in general, clients, and your folder be the client name. Again, not recommending client name equals space here, because for most of you, I'm hoping you're not solely reliant on whales. Sam, the electrician, of course, I knew that, darn. We've got probably a few others here. Typically bespoke projects, architects. I know we were talking to some architects in the last live stream and so on. This is probably going to be the best structure for you. This is the most common. And I should say that all of these ones that I'm talking about today are the most common, the most typical. You are not typical. You are not typical, right? You are special. So do not feel like the stuff I'm saying today is a prescription and this is the only way you can do it. You are not typical. I'm telling you what is typical, okay? So this is the structure I would recommend. List equals stage of the project. So this is like waterfall style, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 as your list. So this could be pre-demo or design, demo, and then post-demo, admin stuff maybe. Tasks equal tasks in this structure. No fancy databasing happening here. And subtasks equal your process. So a task might be, I'm trying to think, apply for or get permits. And subtask could be apply for permit. Subtask 2 could be receive permit. Subtask 3 could be, have inspection for permit, whatever else you need to have in that process. Sam is special, I think. Yeah. Fran, you might be right. Okay, so beyond bespoke projects, which would be a contractor or honestly, many traditional service providers, even some ClickUp consultants fall into this category. Let's talk about retainer, done for you custom services. So it's not just a custom project you do once, it's a custom project you do again and again and again based on the needs of the client. This is often time-based. So for the example here, I did an attorney on retainer, a lawyer on retainer. The space was client name. See, look, I broke the rule here. I put the client up at a high level. The folder is the service type, and list is this month, and list 2 is backlog. See how this is a little bit of a different way of thinking about it? And I hope this is making sense without seeing it directly in ClickUp. That would have probably tripled the amount of time it would take me to prep for this. So I cheaped out a little bit. But this is the structure. So folder could be estate planning. I don't know why you'd have that on retainer. Maybe, who knows? List would be tasks for this month, because maybe you have recurring tasks every month. That's why you're on retainer. And backlog would be ideas, potential tasks. Marketing agencies often run under this. Many agencies actually run under this kind of model as well. So a marketing agency, just to give that example, which many of you might relate to more, would be something like, process driven as your client, right? Your folder would be ads management. Your other folder would be reputation management, and your lists would be this month and backlog in each of them respectively. By doing different folders, you could have different permissions and so on. So there you go. We got one with space. Bookkeeper. Any bookkeepers? Recurring, retainer, productized service. Bookkeepers are great because as an industry, they typically have very standard amounts of work, and they do it on an ongoing basis, which is why it's such a great business model that I've always envied in some ways. So for bookkeeper, I would probably recommend not having a space. You don't necessarily need it. You could always have one if you like the aesthetics, but you don't need one. Your folder would be clients, much like our VA that we talked about earlier. Task would be client name, and your subtask would be your recurring deliverables. Here, it would be very important to use recurring due dates. And this works very well when you have fixed scope every month. You file the transactions, you reconcile, and you send one report. Done. If you do not know how to use recurring tasks in ClickUp, this is a good time to mention that I have a video on that. We have a lot of videos on a lot of things. So bookkeepers or anyone doing recurring services, definitely check out that video on recurring tasks. They just released an update, which I covered inside ClickingUp for those of you who are members in last week's weekly review, or this week. Oh my gosh, maybe it was this week, where they've changed the way that you're able to schedule recurring tasks. So check that out if you're a member. But yeah, master recurring tasks for these. And if you are someone that has recurring monthly tasks, I would also encourage you to just consider sprint lists, a wild card to put into your mind there. I'll be talking later on, I think next month, with more of an Agile pro about how we could use some of those features, even if we're not an Agile organization. Okay, back to, so that is a bookkeeper. Next up, wedding photographer. So hold on one second, Morgan. Oh God, they changed it. Uh-oh. Yeah, actually for the better, I think. I have yet to test it to ensure that there's no hidden quirks, Morgan, but they've basically changed it so that way recurring tasks now, you don't have to use legacy schedule recurring nearly as often as you used to, because now in the simple ClickUp recurring settings, like the main menu, not even in legacy, you'll be able to set a schedule, which is pretty cool in my book, and will avoid having to go into legacy recurring too much. Okay. Next up, we are going into wedding photographer. So wedding photographer. For you, I would recommend having a space equals clients. And again, this is complex event-based is the category here. So I think we had a public speaker, right? We had a speaker in the group here. Anyone who does speaking for a living, this would apply to you. Anything else that's event-based, I mean, vendors, caterers, you're all in what I would consider a complex event-based thing. Not so much a photographer that just does studio sessions or mini sessions. This is for more complex planning. So for you with the complex planning, I'd recommend space equals clients, folder, unconventionally equals year, because wedding photographers, I know you have a lot of couples you're managing. List equals couple name. The reason we bumped it up the level to list is because there are so many moving parts, and I want to make sure you have different permissions for each of your subcontractors that you're going to involve in this. Task equals deliverables, which again, this is where subcontractors and permissions play a role. We moved it up a layer, 4 features here. Subtask equals process. And notice whenever I'm saying subtask, you could also use checklist. Watch that video for the difference. I always prefer checklist if we can do it, but oftentimes subtask is required. So, okay, just looking at some of these questions. Where do I become a ClickUpper? I'm not sure what you mean. You can join our community here. This is our community teaching you how to use ClickUp. If you want to use ClickUp in general, just go to clickup.com. Actually, go to our affiliate link, which is in the description of this video below, and you can sign up for ClickUp a free account. And if you want to join the general free ClickUp Facebook group, it's just search Facebook for ClickUp. Ours is also on there, which is a free group. But our group with all this good stuff is this one. So that's that. Those links are all in the description of the video as well. And if they're not, they will be soon. So recurring tasks is one of functionality. Yes, exactly, Arnold. So when we talked about the different equations that go into determining the right hierarchy, business model is 1, functionality is another. So that due date piece is one of the most common reasons we'll choose between a subtask and a checklist. If we need it to recur and we need it to recur independently of other things, that's one reason we'll do a subtask. Bruce, what is the advantage of placing all recurring tasks for all clients in one list rather than separating by folders for each client? Okay. I don't know that there is any. Basically, what it comes down to, this is the choice, which could actually be an interesting video. Let me know if you guys be interested in it. This is basically coming down to the choice between custom fields and lists, vertical hierarchy and horizontal hierarchy. And let me show you in ClickUp, Bruce, because I think this is a fascinating, so dorky. This is a great conversation. Basically, if you had everything in one list like this live here, you would need to take advantage of custom fields, or perhaps a relationship custom field like I showed in my relationships or my CRM video. You would need a custom field of some kind to associate that task back to the client themselves. And custom field, there you go. Using it the other way, having the vertical hierarchy, one of the main advantages of doing that, you get the same kind of segmentation. It's still categorized, that attribute is still connected to the task because it's in the vertical hierarchy. But the reason to go vertical is for permissions, almost always. We think vertical matters because you can see it only one at a time, but that's really not true. As long as you have the custom field, you could filter using views, and you could filter to see anything. But one of the best reasons to go with the vertical hierarchy over horizontal is to be able to have different permissions. So oftentimes we'll have teams where they have one client that 4 people are working with, one client that 1 person is working with, and so on. So that's one of the best reasons to have folders and lists, is for segmenting permissions out very easily. That's not the only feature, but an important one. And it also allows you to segment out views. But that's one reason why task-based structures, like having a list for your productized or product services, you can have permissions, all of them equally, all in one click to your whole team. All right. Leah says, what is your recommendation for project-based clients? Month-to-month tasks, it can differ, but not retainer clients. Project-based, I would refer you back to bespoke projects. If you have large products or projects, I would go here. If you do not have large projects, if they're smaller, I would go to my shorthand rule of thumb that I talked about earlier and see where it falls nicely on the hierarchy. Probably on the folder level if it's a custom project. But for project-based, the problem with that framework, that classification, is productized is product-based or is project-based, but so is bespoke, but so they're all kind of project-based. So I don't really heavily rely too much on recurring or not recurring to categorize businesses, more so the scope of the resources. So yeah, it's a little bit different. Oh, thank you, Sam. I'm so glad. So glad you're enjoying the community so far. Okay, so I'm going to keep going here. And actually, maybe this will tie in, Leah, a little bit with your question. So complex event-based is where we just left off. And this was kind of our overall structure. Consultant is the next one. And I know many of you here are consultants or are knowledge workers of some kind, and you do one-off sessions, whether it's an inspection, whether it's an audit, whether it's a wellness session or a therapy session. If you have that kind of model, I would recommend going with a list equals offer name, a task equals client. There you go. And your process would be subtasks. So process, by the way, when I'm talking about this, is often going to be something like your onboarding process, your fulfillment process, your whatever process. And you could, this ties into Sam's question that we're going to talk about later, you could either have that whole process there from day one. So for example, when we have ClickingUp members join our ClickingUp or our space in process driven, we have the whole client relationship mapped out in the template. So they get added, they're a task. So we have Sam as a task in our workspace. It's a database style. And all of our subtasks are all of the touch points we want to make sure that Sam gets to experience. I guess you are a special snowflake today, Sam. You're getting special treatment. Or Barb, here, we'll use Barb in this example. Barb is going to receive all of these different touch points as she's going through our journey, whether we reach out to her, she reaches out to us. I just really want it to be exactly, we want to deliver all these pieces to her. And so those are subtasks that we have loaded up at the beginning. If you're using this kind of structure here, like the strategy sessions, you could also have a few subtasks available at a time. So for example, maybe we had Barb join and she gets 3 tasks, or she gets 1 task for Barb. Her subtasks are the 3 onboarding steps we have. When Barb's status moves from onboarding to active member, then we have 5 more subtasks appear. Either way, that is using this kind of strategy session kind of structure that we have here. So hopefully that was a tangible example to help that make sense. Okay. I got some questions. You know how businesses often start off with one person doing everything with a plan to hire people for each job in the future? How do you feel about building ClickUp out as if, oh, this is so good. We just had a conversation about this with, was it Arnold? No, it wasn't Arnold. Maybe it was Arnold. We just had a conversation with this in the forum portion of ClickingUp literally this morning. So I'm of the opinion that you should build for today. Build for today and maybe 2 months out, because it is so much easier to add structure to ClickUp than it is to remove it. And I would hate for you to build out too much structure and then you feel lost and you never get any utility out of it. And you've basically done extra work too early. You've built for people who aren't able to give you feedback yet. And now you are a one-person business juggling 15 different spaces because you built for the 1,500 person organization you want to create. Build for the present, the very near future. So for me, when I was planning on hiring our content manager that we're currently in the test phase with, I'm really excited about, when we were preparing to hire her and I was trying to find the right person and bring on the test project period, that's when I started building out the extra areas she would need to do her job, because that was about 4 weeks out from when she'd start, if that makes sense. Video editor, same way. So I would recommend that kind of balance for the present and the future. Arnold, okay, I thought so, Arnold. It's always hard trying to remember everyone across all the platforms in terms of like, wait, where were we talking about that? Okay, so next up, I hope that helps, Morgan. Let me know if it doesn't, about building out for the future. Also, hold on, back up at the top. For those of you in ClickingUp, this is a good reminder. In the process org chart exercise, the way we teach it at least, it's your org chart should not substantially change no matter how many people you have. That's why we're building it around processes and not people. The functions of your business should be relatively constant. The layer of who's doing those processes, that's going to change a whole lot, hopefully very quickly for you. I'm sure for many of you, it'll change very quickly, but the processes themselves shouldn't. You shouldn't be adding many more processes no matter what scale you get. It's more of a slow and progressive movement, which is why I think org charts are so silly most of the time. Okay, so there we go. That's that. Let's go into memberships, which I am flubbering around on my screen. Memberships is where I think many of us are moving into. Oh, Barb, I'm sorry you'll have to leave, because Barb, I know, is someone who's also going to be building this out. Okay, great stuff. So memberships is something that I'm going to be doing a lot more content about on the channel, because it's personally something that I've been learning a whole lot about and I find really interesting. And so, whoops, sorry, Barb, I keep showing your face. Here's the membership model that I would recommend. Space equals products. Oh, sorry, space equals memberships. So if you have multiple memberships, cool. If you just have one, fine. Folder equals, in this case, your membership name. Hey, we're pretty partial to ours here. List equals assets database, which I know is not the sexiest name. You can give it a nickname. But what this is, and we talked about this actually with Barb on our welcome call, I think, or on the monthly mastermind last month. I was talking to Barb about this in ClickingUp. Personally, we could use the task equals database approach in ClickUp for this. And all that means, don't get tripped on it. All that means is that when we have a task, we know intuitively through the writing we have and the stuff that we use, that the task is not actually a task. We don't change any settings. We just know that that task is a record. Okay. ClickUp's moving towards this direction, so it's going to make a lot more sense in the future, but there we go. So for us, our task equals either a lesson or a PDF. For me inside ClickingUp, I have a task for every single lesson of the course and a task for every single asset resource deliverable. And they all have statuses of what condition are they in. Are they newly published? Are they solid? Do they need revision? And because we've done the thing that most people have not wanted to do, we've created a course about ClickUp, and ClickUp changes every week. So you can bet we are doing constant revisions. And so by having this kind of status-based system, that's how we're managing the updates of the membership. Another list here is members. So we already talked about this before with the example of Barb, but there you go. I will also say if you have a monthly additional content, I usually add those here as tasks, and they're just in the to be created status until they move into a permanent status. And I should also say, when I'm talking about status, I'm often using a custom field and not the status column. I'm not being hypocritical here. You can watch my video on why that is the case. So that's a membership. Let me know if you have any questions about this. This is a really, really useful structure, and the membership model can work really well, even if a membership is just part of your business, by using the CRM relationship feature. Next up, online course. Difference between membership and course, which could be something like something you just, how do I explain it? Membership, more involved, more interactive. That's what I run because I like the interaction. Online course is more of a product. And so the structure kind of reflects that. So space is products, folder is course name, list is assets, once again, and then the other list is marketing. Because you don't really worry so much about members on the course side, that's typically handled by your payment processor, I would spend the rest of my brain space and my hierarchy on marketing and launches. Because if you're in an online course business, you're mostly in marketing. Okay, so some questions. Okay, so Loretta is responding to Morgan's question, which again, thank you for that question, Morgan. So that was back up here talking about, do you build ClickUp for the future or not? Loretta got some value out of that, which I'm very glad to hear. Simplicity assigning, yeah, I wouldn't believe me either, but I would suggest believing me on that one. All right, Connie, I need to jump to a meeting, but very interested in reviewing the book. Timestamps are coming for you. And I'm glad Morgan's going to keep pushing forward in terms of building for the future. Build for the future in your org chart if you need to, but you do not need to build for the future in your ClickUp yet. So much easier to add than to remove. All right, last two. Hopefully some good too, because I know some people were waiting on these. E-commerce. I saved these two for last because these are some of the most complex structures you can build in ClickUp because there are so many parts to e-commerce. And in this e-commerce example, same with the brick and mortar, I'm assuming that you are managing everything in ClickUp, which is very rarely the case for these businesses. These businesses typically will use a specialized fulfillment tool. But let's imagine we were determined and we wanted to build it all into ClickUp. Well, what I would recommend for your e-commerce business is to have a space equals your web domain, your property, your folder number 1 equals supply. So your materials, the goods that you're selling. The list number 1 is finished goods, where your task equals a SKU. The other list in your supply area would be materials inventory and production routines. This would make a lot of sense if you're someone that's manufacturing your own goods. Originally in the description below, this says, I think reseller. I changed it to make and sell because I got some feedback from you that people who make their own products wanted to be represented, and I hear you. So there you go. This kind of structure would do really well with the relationship feature because you could connect your production tasks with the ingredients you need for those tasks. So there you go. Things can move between those lists. There's a lot more here. The other folder is sales. So while I'm not going to map out the whole hierarchy for them, these people in this space, there is a sales component. Obviously, that's the demand side of supply. List would be orders. Task would equal an order number. Second list would be kind of customer complaints or I want to say unsatisfied orders, rejected orders. And this kind of ties into the help desk example from earlier. But list equals customer service. And once again, task equals orders. So you can easily drag things between these two. Finally, a folder for marketing. And this is where you would handle your new product development, especially if you're manufacturing your own products. This is going to be a more involved process. So I am suggesting at this point, keeping your new product ideas and new products as tasks. But if you had a more complex development process, if it wasn't just, I think the example I did here is a small soap and candle store. If you had a more complex example, you could certainly move it up a layer in the hierarchy. But here I've kept them as tasks because I prefer, if we can, to keep everything as tasks because it just has a lot more features. All right, so next up, brick and mortar reseller. So this is for our gaming store. I know we have at least one in the audience here who has a Pathfinder / Dungeons and Dragons geek store, which I love. If you have a brick and mortar store where you're reselling products that you purchase, here's the structure that I would recommend as a kind of the most common way people do it. Space equals property, storefront, if you will. List equals routines, list equals improvements, list equals ideas. This is pretty much like your operations area. These 3 lists are folder lists. They're just floating. Next, you have a folder called stock, just like with the other provider here, but much simpler, where you have list equals inventory, tasks equals SKU, and you use your custom fields accordingly. Like for all of these, this would be easier to just use a point of sale tool. So most people will, which is why you don't see very many examples of using ClickUp for these, but I'm giving you the example here in case you are stuck and you are in this situation. So I need a water break. I'm going to ask you guys for questions and we're going to do some wrap up stuff. So questions as I mute myself. Any questions? Any questions? Questions coming 1, 2, 3. Let's see. Any questions here? Okay, let's see what we got coming in. The idea of putting absolutely everything in ClickUp is terrifying. I use Shopify and wish it automatically went to ClickUp. Exactly. See, this is the point that I have. And we've received a few inquiries lately around e-commerce setups. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really make sense to do a lot of coverage for that use case because it's not usually the most logical use case, if that makes sense. You're typically going to be better off in Shopify or some of its more developed cousins. But yes, I will see people typically do things like order complaints, things that have manual fulfillment. Drop shippers, typically not. Really depends on the complexity. Yeah, plants growing. That could be an argument to use ClickUp just because you can kind of track age more accurately, or maybe just upgrade from Shopify to something more complex. So relationships in a way that is applicable to e-commerce, I would watch the CRM video to learn about the ClickUp relationships and rollups feature. I think the way I apply it there should be pretty clear. But if that doesn't make sense for you, I do have more videos coming out this month actually about how you can use that relationships feature for tracking these kinds of orders. Right? Ashley is the one. Ashley, guys, I asked if there's any vetting consultants here. Ashley is one of them. And she is the girl who turned me on to Whimsical. So thank you, Ashley. You should definitely switch back. It is amazing. All right. Yep, exactly. Exactly. So that's where I think, especially with this quantity of data, time-sensitive data, ClickUp maybe a little bit buggy at times, and it doesn't integrate with those kinds of sales tools. It may make sense to upgrade to a inventory management tool just because they're made for this. This is kind of the situation of building ClickUp for everything or using the best-in-class tool. You think so? Maybe later. I need something. My throat is like killing me after these. All right, question here about just general ClickUp stuff, and I'm going to transition into kind of our wrap-up information for today. So if you have any questions, this is your opportunity to write it in. I typically do not recommend attaching files to ClickUp if you need them for the long term. If you need them for a transaction, for a task, for example, if you were building out a customer service, simple here, example, this kind of thing, and you wanted to attach the email or convert the email into a task in ClickUp, more power to you. If you wanted, however, to store your brand assets, your logo, your mission statement only in ClickUp directly, I would not recommend that. Call me a doomsday person, but ClickUp might leave. I'd rather have my stuff in something more secure and link to it. Plus, attaching files to ClickUp is one of the main reasons, file storage, that people upgrade to the paid plan of ClickUp, and it's kind of one of the silliest reasons. So I would link if you can, link if you need security, link if you have an option. If it's something light, small, you need it really quickly, just like Clip, I would use Clip for light, silly things. If you need long-term video storage, post it somewhere else. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if not. All righty, friends, let's go to some wrap up today. I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then we're going to go to the final portion of today. Questions, I would love to hear them. So far we talked about what is the ClickUp hierarchy as a review for those of you who have maybe been a little bit new to the tool, what variables matter, 3 methods to choose, the shorthand if you want to have a shortcut, and then kind of more detailed examples of most common structures. Some common structures here. And as I said, not the full hierarchy, just giving you an example about the service side of things. Oh, and I should say, this entire video is just because one of you in your ClickingUp member feedback survey, I will not call you out by name, you specifically asked for more examples of the ClickUp hierarchy. I'm not sure if it was for yourself or for your ClickUp clients. Here you go. We answered in a big way. So hopefully you get to watch this video and we're listening. We are listening very much. Okay, so just to wrap up with some information here, I'd like to give you guys some takeaways. Takeaway number 1, the obvious one, simplify your hierarchy. If you possibly can, make it simpler. Action item number 2, I want to tell you what we're releasing this month to support this kind of structure in terms of our templates. As always, just because we're creating the templates does not mean you need to buy them from us. If you're in a financial position where joining ClickingUp, although it is really affordable, is not in your budget, no worries. Create these on your own because these are really nice assets to have for yourself. So the first template we're going to be releasing later this month is going to be a big template about membership and course management. It's going to be the full modified, cleaned up template I've been using to grow ClickingUp. I put a lot of time into it, so I'm excited for this one to be released and dropped for those of you who are building out courses or kind of a more done with you side of your business. The second piece, which ties into the question that came in from Morgan, I think, talking about relationships, we're going to be dropping a template, and I am going to release a YouTube video kind of related to this about ingredients, inventory, production, and using the relationships and rollups to manage all that. So these are actually both going to use the relationships feature. So there's some good stuff. I also want to say Sam is one person, but I mean, Barb, the other members who are in the community here, who are just watching and listening, monthly mastermind is at the end of this month for ClickingUp members, where we're going to join live on a call. I would love for you guys to bring your hierarchies for feedback. You can obviously post about them anytime in the community, but it can be nice to kind of like talk through it. So bring it to the group call at the end of this month so we can actually talk about it. Related note, if you are a ClickUp service provider, ClickingUp is still for you. So guys, I'm talking right now about what I do, because it turns out free YouTube videos do not pay the bills. We have a lot of ClickUp service providers in the community. And if you are someone who's looking to get certified in ClickUp, master ClickUp, work with ClickUp for multiple clients, you are welcome. You are invited. Client questions are also very, very much welcome to our masterminds. So now I need to ask for your guys' help with some feedback. So first of all, if you're enjoying this video, even a little bit, please give it a thumbs up. It costs you nothing. I always say this, it costs you nothing. Helps this video perform in the YouTube algorithm. Like, it's a huge help. So take a second, even if you're listening while doing something else, look down at your phone or on your computer and give the video a thumbs up. And while you're there, if you are able to type, I would love to hear if you guys would like to attend a cleanup workshop. So right now, we are going to be adding a quarterly workshop to ClickingUp as another free member benefit, because we can't get enough. But I'm not sure whether, like, you guys voted last time saying you'd be interested in it. But my question today is, would you attend? Would you pay to attend a guided ClickUp cleanup workshop? Price point, I'm not quite sure yet. It should be pretty low ticket, pretty affordable. Would you pay to attend that? Just type the word cleanup if you would. I'm trying to get a sense as to whether it's worth taking the time to make it publicly available or only have it for members. So I would appreciate your feedback there. And I'm not going to hold you to it. Like, I won't be chasing you down. I don't have any fancy marketing funnels. I'm just trying to get like an engagement test here, so I know whether it's worth the time to set up all of the back end stuff for that. So finally, last question. And this is one that you can post in the chat, or you can leave in a comment if you're watching this on the replay. If you have any questions about service delivery management or team management in ClickUp, those are our themes for the next 60 days. All the content, pretty much all the content in ClickingUp and outside are going to be around, first, service delivery, offer fulfillment, and then next month, team management. So if you have questions about this, I am all ears. I would love to hear them in the comments below. I would love to hear them in the chat now, because I could totally, I do regularly source my content from you guys. This whole webinar is from someone's feedback. So I would love to hear what you guys would like to see. If there's any specific questions that you have, whether we're already handling it, I'll tell you when that video is coming out. If we already have it scheduled, if we don't, I'll tell you if we're going to have it scheduled, or if at least it's on the list. So I would appreciate that so much. Just to recap with all the last info, if you want to find out the technology we used, including Ashley Schuller's wonderful recommendation of Whimsical, you can find the links and all of the gear I'm using here. Super low tech today. If you would enjoy attending a ClickUp cleanup, and you would actually pay for it, put it here. I will not stalk you or anything. I'm just trying to get a sense of interest. If you haven't already joined our free Facebook group to hang out with me on the internet or watch these live streams, join the free Facebook group here. And if you want to actually get all of the perks that I keep talking about of how I'm actually interacting with clients these days, join ClickingUp community. You can find the link to all this good stuff at processdriven.co. And again, like this video if you enjoy it. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm going to be hanging out in the comments for a little bit just to check in and see how everyone's doing. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. And I'll see you back here Friday with another video that I think is about approvals in ClickUp, actually. So I should know that. But either way, I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye.